we just started getting word just a couple of moments ago that Charlie Kirk has been shot.
Thoughts and prayers need to go out to Charlie Kirk and his family. As of right now, we don't know his status. We are getting updates as they come in. And the crazy thing is, this story happened minutes before I was about to film this video. And the reason it's crazy is because my video was talking about how left-wing politicians are hyping up the rhetoric. They are causing divide. They are using violent language, war rhetoric, to create a divide between Canada, the US, citizens inside these nations, to keep people divided and angry at each other, as well as being soft on crime, creating domestic issues, and all of these things are obviously fixable. So when I see Mark Carney shutting down oil pipelines, and I see Mark Carney using the language that we're going to get into on top of all of the things that are going on in Europe, and he wants to attach ourselves to that, remove ourselves from America. The time could not be more clear that we need to talk about it now, so I still will cover those stories because I actually think now more than ever we need to talk about what they're doing, but we will get more into the Charlie Kirk story because I have some points I want to make around that at the end of the video. There's a lot to talk about today, so let's get into it.
Now, we have to be clear. We have to continue to be clear with Canadians that this won't always be easy. What's happening, as I said earlier, in the global economy, partly in jest, but this is serious now. What's happening in the global economy is not a transition. It's a rupture. It is a major change in a fast period of time. The US is fundamentally transforming all of its trading relationships, not just with Canada. The effect is profound. It's displacing workers. It's disrupting supply chains. It's causing immense uncertainty that's curbing investment and increasing unemployment. We're over the shock, but we should never forget the lessons. We have to look out for ourselves.
Obviously there he's talking about the global economy rupturing, and in that speech he talks about all of the security changes in the world and how everything's shaping. He even uses World War II terminology in that speech. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's driving up a divide. It's us versus them. It's Canadians versus Americans. Unless you're from the provinces where your politics differ from ours, in which case, you know, we're going to call you a traitor. We're going to go after you, say how you're trying to take out Canada. Meanwhile, Canada and the US should be absolute best friends, and we can see, like we're about to get into, there are so many major global issues going on why we need a trade deal. But instead, we have articles like this with Carney says major projects coming to combat trade war crisis. He calls it a crisis, he calls it a trade war, and all of his rhetoric is about how America is trying to hurt us. Meanwhile, between Canada and the US, we could be the #1 most ethical producers of oil and gas, but for some reason, we decided to shut down oil production when announcing these projects.
The government is expected to reveal soon its list of the first projects of national interest that it hopes to fast-track. Multiple sources are telling our colleagues at Radio-Canada this morning that list, this initial short list, will not include oil pipelines. Again, that's at least not for now. A Liberal source is saying the absence of a pipeline on the initial list doesn't mean it will never happen, and that approval of a natural gas pipeline could also be possible. Prime Minister Carney has previously said the involvement of a private developer is essential for a pipeline project to move forward.
Oh yeah, we'll get into that in a second. We need a private partner on the pipeline project. That's the only thing that's holding us back. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's a great starting point for our conversation this week with Catherine Cullen, who hosts The House on CBC Radio and gives us some time on Wednesdays. Good to see you again, Catherine. Welcome back.
Lovely to see you, Heather. Nice
We've been having some reporting from Janice and from Rafi, who is in Edmonton, about this short list, as Radio-Canada has been reporting. No pipelines for now. Nobody's come forward yet. No company has come forward yet. Can you give us any information that you might have in terms of why not and why pipelines aren't on this first list?
Well,
Maybe it's because the Liberals want to run Canada into the ground. Maybe it's because they have no interest in possibly helping actual Canadians and building real projects. They're not going to cut immigration, which is a danger to Canada. They're not going to allow us to build major projects, which would help Canada and strengthen our relationship with the US, especially on the security side of things. Oh, yeah, I wonder.
This is the question, right? The Prime Minister has been pretty clear that they want a lot of this work driven by the private sector and that there was going to need to be a private sector proponent. Earlier this summer, the Prime Minister was out at the Calgary Stampede and he said it was highly, highly likely that there would be a pipeline on Ottawa's list of at least potential projects. Now, if you listen to, for instance, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, they have blamed the regulatory environment. They have basically said it's liberal policies around these things that are prohibiting companies from coming forward. And Danielle Smith has a longer list of 9 policies she'd like to see changed. I saw she put out a tweet recently where she's got it down to about 3. But
And that's the thing. The Liberals say one thing and they do the other. We're all about everybody being safe. And the way we want everybody to be safe is by being as weak as possible on crime. We want you to build pipelines. We really want Canada to do well. We're not going to remove the cap on production. We're not going to remove the anti-pipeline bills. We're not going to do all of that stuff. Because we care about the success, we're going to start a new program, a new division, a new regulatory body to make sure we fast track these projects. Just everything they say is the opposite of what they want to do.
She is expected to meet with the Prime Minister today. On the one hand, no doubt she will be disappointed because she has suggested that getting a new oil pipeline built is important for national unity. At the same time, the lack of private proponent means that it's quite difficult for the federal government to move forward with this.
So at the expense of national unity, we just don't have the private proponent. That's why we can't do the project. Well, why don't we look into this little story, which we've talked about on this channel before. Quebec ends funding for Northvolt battery factory after losing the $270 million investment. So you think, oh, well, that was only $270 million. Of course you can't build a pipeline with that. Well, the Quebec government is pulling the plug on a $7 billion electrical vehicle battery plant. Well, actually, it's $7.3 billion. Not only that, they had no customer base, they had no sales. So if you want to make the argument that some company was willing to come in and risk starting a business when they had over $7 billion in guarantees as being private proponent of a project, oh, this is a private proponent. They were coming in and they were going to be given $7.3 billion to build a battery plant. Very private proponent. Build the pipelines, you absolute idiots, you absolute goofs. You are letting your politics override all of the actual economic changes that need to be made. Everybody knows Canada should have the pipelines project starting. You could use Canadian steel, which you want to use. You can use Canadian labor, which we're supposed to be creating jobs. $7.3 billion for a nonsense battery factory. You're telling me we can't get a pipeline started with $7.3 billion? You're absolutely lying. You're cowards. And this is why it's so important for Canada and the US and our unity on working together when we have stories like this.
President Trump wants the EU, he wants the Europeans to hit China and India with 100% tariffs to pressure Putin. Senator Dan Sullivan, Republican from the great state of Alaska, joins me now. Mr. Senator, if you impose tariffs on China and India because they're buying Russian oil, surely the result would be higher oil prices, which would not be good for Alaska, right?
Well, Stuart, I think the way you respond to that, and by the way, I support those sanctions. There's a bill in the Congress that you know in the Senate. It's got over 80 co-sponsors. We're working closely with the administration on when to unleash that. But the president's exactly right. We have to have the Europeans on board as well.
Yeah, the Europeans need to be on board, but they need access to oil and gas. Who could they possibly get it from?
So it's both the Europeans and the United States. But to answer your question, look, the best way to address any kind of rising energy costs is to unleash American energy. And that's what the administration is all about. That's what the president's all about. By the way, that's what the One Big Beautiful Bill is all about, particularly for Alaska. So when you unleash American energy, that's the way you keep energy prices down. But one other thing on that, Stuart, really important. I was in a meeting a number of years ago with a Russian dissident, a top-level Russian dissident. At the end of the meeting, I said, what more can we do to undermine the Putin regime? He said, the number one thing you can do is produce more American energy. So
the number one thing you can do is produce more American energy. I'm not even some super anti-Russia guy. But if the idea is that Canada and the US can build a strong economic and secure partnership and get along, and we have these projects that we could work on together, it would create one of the most powerful economic zones in the world. So it's not even about all of these other things. It's about what could America and Canada produce working together while we do have global security concerns, while we have these conflicts heating up. Wouldn't it make sense for us to get along? But again, Mark Carney and the Liberals will not approve any of these projects. They will not incentivize any of these projects. We don't have a private proponent. We've made it impossible to do, but we just don't have a private proponent. So Mark Carney said it's not safe to work with America anymore. He said that relationship's changed. We got to move on to Europe. Well, let's check in on France, shall we? And yes, unfortunately, a bit of a warning here. There's a lot of French people in the video. Ugh.
C'est la même merde. C'est le même en fait. C'est Macron le problème.
So here we have it. Obviously, bunch of French people running around rioting, which unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, is not that new for France. They're sick of the problems that are happening there. This is a government problem. Again, a extremely left-wing government that is keeping its people divided. It is holding its population back. And now you're ending up with this because you just can't trust these people. Somehow, the reason why France, I don't really trust them that much is allegedly they want to go even more left, although there are a bunch of right-wing parties heating up in France, in Germany. Hopefully they can start to get a bit more power on the elections there, especially when this story happened today as well.
Secretary General Mark Rutte has been speaking about what happened in Poland. He was talking just last hour, and we have more of his comments and reaction for you now. The Secretary General says NATO forces were part of a response to the Russian drone incursion. He points to Italy and Germany, as well as the Netherlands, and adds NATO's military is continuing to look into exactly what happened.
Whether it was intentionally or not, it is absolutely reckless. It is absolutely dangerous. But as I said, the full assessment is ongoing.
This is new video showing what appears to be drone debris at the scene. Poland's Interior Ministry says parts of 7 drones have been recovered so far.
So I will say this story is one of the stranger ones on the day, only because Russia is obviously distracted with Ukraine. That's taking up a ton of their resources. It is taking up a ton of their manpower. Poland is a strong nation. They are tied to NATO. They have a very strong border, a defended border. So I just don't see how it would logically make sense for them to attempt something like this against Poland. And we know I'm a huge Poland guy. We're big Poland guys on the channel. So I don't want to see anything happen to Poland. I think obviously keeping an eye on this situation is very important. And I think, if anything were to happen and we supported Poland, I'd be supportive of that. Not war stuff, though. I'm very anti-war. And I will say that this is very suspicious that it's happening now. I just can't see what the benefit is to Russia.
Some far from the border with Ukraine. The ministry adds what appears to be debris from a missile has also been recovered, but that could be debris from the country's air defense. Poland is one of Canada's NATO allies. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is calling for consultations with NATO allies, invoking the alliance's Article 4. And indeed, we heard from Mark Rutte that the North Atlantic Council has met on that point just already this morning.
That was a big story, again, connecting why we need to stick together in North America, why we need to get serious about working together, especially as we are getting this multipolar world. Speaking of polar, we have Canadian Navy hunting ghost ships in Arctic training exercises. In this video, of course, it's just for training, it's just for exercises, but they obviously know this is an issue, which again would be very important for Canada and the US to be working together.
You look and check all the inlets and basically flesh out the small vessels.
On board one of the Canadian Navy's newest vessels, a search has just been launched. The crew, joined by a Coast Guard helicopter, combing these vast Arctic waters for a small vessel that doesn't want to be found.
How do you actually proceed now?
So now that we've been tasked for it, we're going to go and take a look and try and find this person.
This is only a practice scenario, but Commander Scott Kellerman makes sure his crew treats it like it's real.
It could be something that could be very challenging to find.
Then we'll be.
And it certainly should be treating it like it's real, because obviously as these things heat up, once again, we need to get serious, because they're like, people expect like, oh, the global world is just a safe place, so we can just take advantage of our relationship with the U.S. and no, we don't have to worry about it. Nobody wants to attack Canada.
Be able to go in with our small boats and the RCMP detachment.
This is not some far-fetched scenario. Just this summer, Canada launched surveillance aircraft to monitor the Zhulong 2, a Chinese vessel purportedly for research, but it's also believed to have military application. An independent researcher also tracked a Canadian Coast Guard vessel mirroring that Chinese icebreaker's transit. While last summer it was Canada's Navy shadowing a Chinese vessel.
These research vessels have a wide range of purposes, some of which may not exactly be in Canadian interests.
Not in Canadian interest is quite a soft way of putting it, especially since in the rest of the video they mentioned, oh yeah, there's a lot of minerals and resources up in this area. And we know, as I was watching in other videos, seeing other stories, China is ramping up their military production, including their submarines, and they're trying to become a destination for shipbuilding, submarines, all of these things. Yeah, I think maybe we should pay attention to these exercises. I think maybe we should take this seriously. But you know what? Let's offboard all our military spending to another continent and not work with our neighbor, who is one of our best allies in the world, up until the Liberals needed to win an election, and then they decided to get the Canadian population, who somehow is still drinking the Kool-Aid. There are still elbows up. Carney somehow has a high approval rating in Canada, and it is all because of media manipulation. We are covering this Charlie Kirk story, and then I have a disgusting clip that I want to show from an American media source on why the media needs to be held accountable for this left-wing violence. They are doing everything they can to drum up hate. They're doing everything they can to make people mad.
U.S. media outlets are reporting that prominent American right-wing activist Charlie Kirk has been shot. The CBC's Aaron Collins joins us live from Washington. So, Aaron, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Andrew, this is just breaking now, so we're still just kind of piecing together what happened, but you covered the basics there. Charlie Kirk, a well-known right-wing media personality and activist, shot at Utah Valley University. So the 31-year-old political activist, a big fan and supporter of Donald Trump over the years, apparently was speaking about transgender policy when this happened. These are the reports we're reading. It's an event that Mr. Kirk was hosting. Specifically, he was speaking a bit about transgender policy. We're hearing that.
So it's just interesting the way that they're presenting this story, like, oh, you know, he's very right-wing, Donald Trump supporter. He was talking anti-trans issues. You know, he was shot, but here's these things that he was covering that you should probably be mad about or care less about.
The university put out a statement saying that there was a single shot fired and Mr. Kirk was the target. Also, you know, hearing a lot on social media already about this. The Vice President, J.D. Vance, tweeting out on social media that, you know, thoughts and prayers should be with Mr. Kirk at this time. And this, of course, as these kinds of, you know, violent political acts will often do, crossing political lines, right? We heard from California Governor Gavin Newsom as well about this, saying that this is an unacceptable kind of event. And really, you know, this is, you know, hard to watch, hard to see. And there is video of this that's unconfirmed at this point that, you know, these things, this just goes to show you sort of the heightened tension in American politics these days, Andrew.
Heightened tension in American politics. I wonder who's driving that divide. I wonder which news stations, which mainstream media news stations decided to run cover for the murderer of the Ukrainian girl on the train. I wonder which news stations did that. Was it the right-wing stations? Were they the ones who somehow covered and justified the actions of that? I don't think it was. But here we have MSNBC theorizing what they think was the reason for the shooting.
Again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
Is that what you think it is, guys? Is that really what you think it is? Let's play that again.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
You're going to theorize with that? That it was his own follower, it was his own fan who was shooting off in celebration, and that's how it happened. That's what they're going to go with. This is why people don't trust the mainstream media anymore. This is why I made this channel, so I can call out this nonsense. This is why whenever you guys complain like, hey, that was a CNN video or this was this, it's because I'm saying what they're covering wrong on the news stations. I play their video and say they covered the wrong thing. Here's their nonsense. Here's what I'm calling out. That's why I do it. Allegedly, I already caught the guy. This is him here. Which is classic. It's somehow a liberal boomer. And again, boomers, before you get mad, I'm saying liberal boomers. Not all boomers are liberals, but there are a ton of them, especially in Canada. And this is why we have the psycho left-wing government in Canada. But this was a tweet put out by Estetica. He said, Democrats are a danger to society. We've allowed them to radicalize without doing anything for far too long. Half of their party are violent extremists. Enough is enough. How many more times are conservatives going to get shot by radical Democrats before something is done? Then I wanted to show this map. Obviously, you know, I'm still a Canadian. I still want Canada to be a strong, independent country. I, however, want Canada and the US to be working together more than they ever have before. Now more than ever, it makes way more sense for us to come together and stop being so divided. We cannot allow these left-wing nonsense policies continue to take over, to continue to put our societies at risk, because and a lot of it, again, has to do with immigration because of all the problems that immigration brings into Canada, brings into the US. We are not able to focus on fixing real domestic issues like we just saw. Real domestic things that could be fixed now because all of our resources are being wasted on bringing in millions of strangers, and they are clogging up our social systems, breaking down social cohesion. People are not getting along. It's keeping people divided. We need to start coming together. And I don't want to make the Charlie Kirk thing about me, but this is why, you know, people like me who take these risks and say these things, you know, I used to get pushback. The risk is there, and I'm not comparing myself to what just happened to Charlie Kirk, because obviously I'm not sure how this is going to land for him. It was a pretty devastating video, but the whole point of basically what I'm saying, obviously with us needing to work together and how important this is I also wanted to take the time to say every time you guys watch a video, you click like, you support the channel in any way, I actually do appreciate it because there are real risks involved, and the amount of flack that we take, I already get hate messages all the time. So when I see you guys providing positive comments, saying you like the video, you learned something new, you feel like we're bridging the gap, building here, I like the community that's starting to shape up. So thank you. Like I always say, all of the new subscribers, the channel members, you guys are awesome. It's great that you're on board. I really do love what we're building here. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.